This vacuum hose kit is specific to the EN07Y Supercharged. Even more specific to the KS4 electronic multi-port fuel injection with no AC. Older vacuum hoses get weak over time and brittle and crack from different heat cycles. For the supercharged vehicle, we need to make a conversion of millimeters of mercury to inches of mercury, which for the manual transmission should be around 18 inches of mercury. We do this by checking it with a vacuum gauge. This video will guide you if you're going to do this DIY and just use a roll of your own vacuum, or if you purchase this pre-cut SVT-WRC kit that comes with written instruction. Each hose in the kit has been pre-cut and laid out and marked so no confusion is made. High quality silicone has been used and tested to ensure fitment through different heat cycles. Right now the kit is available in World Rally Blue and Neon Green, but more colors will become available soon. This is not only an engine bay dress up, but this silicone vastly outperforms. It solidly holds, and all the connection points without bending or crimping, maintaining great connection through the different heat cycles that it's going to see, keeping the important systems that run off the vacuum running properly. Word of caution, the vacuum ports and the nipples that we're going to encounter are very fragile. Some of these parts are discontinued. To remove some of these hoses from the valves correctly, you want to twist them and release the buildup. Pull the hose straight off. Do not apply too much force as it can damage the port and the nipple as you're taking the hose off. One hose at a time. This way you don't get the hoses confused when you're taking them off and putting them on. These check valves are the way that they are supposed to go when you take them off stock, so don't reverse the check valves. For stubborn hoses, some WD-40 or some lubrication is great. Also a pair of needle nose pliers. Gently apply some pressure and twist the hose so it releases the buildup, and then the hose can come right off. Depending on what model, you have to remove the engine cover, maybe the bed for full access. After that, identifying the four-wheel drive vacuum engagement solenoid and its ports labeled A through D. The hoses in the kit will be marked 1 through 8. We'll start with hose 1A and 1B from the kit. It's one of the shortest hoses in the kit, and we're going to go from port A on the vacuum solenoid, which is the top port on the left side if you're facing the 3-wire electrical connection. Using the methods we just went over, carefully remove the small hose from port A. Take note to not reverse the valves. Remove one hose at a time from the valve. Replace the hose with hose 1A of the kit. Remove the vent hose from the valve. Replace that hose with hose 1B from the kit. It will be a long hose. Remember to pull the hose straight off not to damage those important, very important connectors. So hose 1A goes into the two-way valve with the same orientation it came off. Hose 1B splits under here. This is your reference. It's your vent. It actually goes to nowhere. They leave this in between here because it's a nice place where dust isn't really going to get to it. And they like to snake it down in here and hold it on with this clip. So don't be alarmed. It actually goes to nowhere. Next, we'll move on to port B of the vacuum solenoid. Remove that hose gently. And it's a long hose that has a holder. Pull the hose up, leaving the connection to the supercharger still on. We want to make sure that this one-way valve gets installed the correct orientation that it came off. Next, remove the shorter hose from the supercharger, twist and pull the connection, making sure not to confuse the one-way valve. We're going to take the kit's 2A hose, then connect the other end to the supercharger. Gently remove the stock hose from the one-way valve and replace that with hose 2B from the kit. If you don't want to use lubrication, sometimes twisting the hose will aid them go on. Then thread hose 2B around to its connection, and then connect hose 2B to port B on the vacuum solenoid. You will start to notice how well these hoses hook up to these ports and these nipples. They're not going anywhere once they're hooked up. This is why you don't have to use any hose clamps for these. Next, identify port C on the vacuum solenoid and remove that hose from the port. For this, we will use hose number 3 to follow it down to its port onto the transmission. This goes to the transmission where it engages the front axle's lock to engage four-wheel drive. Lastly, port D on the vacuum solenoid will feed the other side of that transmission's engagement. That concludes the four-wheel drive engagement solenoid. Next, we're going to move on to the rest of the hoses in the kit for the canister, the bypass valve for the supercharger, the fuel pressure regulator, and the map sensors reference. Next, we will locate the bypass valve and throttle body. Remove these and replace it with the kit's hose number 5. Remember to seat these hoses all the way down on their connections to get the best fitting. Then connect the other side of the bypass valve to the throttle body's nipple. The evap canister has a vacuum hose and an evap hose. I put a yellow clamp on the evap hose. We're going to leave that be. And we don't want to remove that. We just want to remove the vacuum line. We can do this by going to the throttle body and removing that hose that will go for hose 6. This is the hose that snakes under hose 5 connection that we just did. You'll take that other end off of the canister and replace that with hose number 6 and run that back to the throttle body. For the kit's hose number 7, we're going to locate the fuel pressure regulator and its attachment to the intake manifold. Remove the 2 hose clamps from the stock hose. Replace that with hose 7 from the kit. The connections for this 3mm hose will be so tight you don't need hose clamps. The final hose in the kit requires needle nose pliers. You will need to get them under, but be very careful of the coolant temperature sensors. They're very delicate, and I don't believe that they sell them anymore. There are 2 stock pressure clamps on this stock hose that are easy to remove. With the hose already installed, it's a better visual reference. It goes right from the intake manifold to a hard line that feeds the map sensor. Pull the hose straight off carefully and replace it underneath with the needle nose pliers. Move it along until you see where it attaches to the rail that feeds the map sensor. Any issues timing with these vacuum-controlled vehicles, especially the Clover 4, changing these hoses out to a high-quality silicone can improve the idle as well as the functions of the bypass valve, the fuel pressure regulator. For the DIYer, if you were to purchase your own, just vacuum roll of whatever you'd like. Make sure it's a 3mm inside diameter. If you have any confusion, purchase the pre-cut kit. It will include written instructions as well. I will leave a link below. The kit will be available on eBay for purchase. Right now, $30 US plus shipping to wherever you are. We're going to try and do international shipping. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave them in the comments below. Thanks again, everyone.